Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Mark, and today we've got something special for you.
And I am Victoria. Hi Mark, how are you today?
I am good, thank you. And you?
Thanks for asking. I am okay. Mark, today we are going to talk about mistakes students make while speaking that actually lower their fluency. Is that right?
You are correct. I have a special surprise for all watchers. In this episode, we're going to dive into the 3 hidden mistakes people make when trying to become fluent in English. Mistakes that most English learning channels don't talk about. I think everyone who watches this podcast will be able to solve most of their problems with fluency. And to help us uncover these, I've got you with me, Victoria. Victoria is an experienced language teacher who's worked with hundreds of students from around the world. She's passionate about making language learning practical, fun, and stress-free. Thanks for being with us here today, Victoria.
Cheers, Mark. It's great to be here. I'm very excited to talk about some of these common, often neglected mistakes. These are things I see still holding students back in their fluency journey, and I'm thrilled to be able to share some insights with your audience today.
To all those who watch us right now, take a cup of coffee, relax, and pick a paper and pen. Then write your questions while listening to this podcast in the comments. We'd love to hear them. Cool. I'm sure everyone will find this super useful. So we all know the usual advice like practice speaking or listen to native speakers, but today we're going to tackle some hidden mistakes, things that might be affecting your fluency without you even realizing it. Let's dive into the first one. Victoria, what's the first common mistake that learners often make?
Mistake number 1, focusing too much on grammar rules. This one I see so often. People get so caught up in grammar. Don't get me wrong, grammar is important. But learners get so focused on getting everything right that it slows them down. They think, if I don't speak perfectly, I'm not fluent. And the thing is, nobody speaks perfectly all the time, even native speakers.
Oh, totally. It is like getting stuck thinking that your sentence structure is right or whether you are using the right tense. Next thing you know, you stop speaking altogether.
Exactly, Mark. Let me give you an example. Take such a simple sentence as, I'm going to the store. So now, a lot of students freeze and ask themselves, do I use present continuous here? Shouldn't it be I go to the shop instead of I'm going to the shop? Simple sentence. They overthink it. Really, if you told someone, I'm going to the store, 9 out of 10 will understand you.
So it's just easier to just talk and listen to get the point across, isn't it?
Well, that really is what you want to do. You want to communicate. You're going to understand things much quicker if you remember that you don't necessarily have to worry about grammatical implications. Don't be afraid of grammaticality. It's better to speak with imperfections than not speak at all.
Great. Let's move on to the second mistake most students make. Mistake number 2, not listening enough to natural, everyday speech. I've seen this one too. People get stuck in textbooks and forget to listen to how people actually speak in everyday situations. Do you want to talk about that, Victoria?
Absolutely. The biggest mistake that students make is being too formal, staying in textbook English, and then missing out on natural conversation. English isn't just about formal vocabulary and structure. It's about how we actually talk in real life. Native speakers frequently use slang, contractions, phrasal verbs, and informal expressions that you won't find in textbooks.
Yeah, like gonna instead of going to, or wanna instead of want to. Those don't even look right in formal English, but we say them all the time.
That's right. For example, if I say, I'm going to grab some coffee, you understand what I mean. But a learner who's wedded to textbook English might try to say,
the siren call of roasted grain compels me forth. I can't restrain.
And even though that isn't incorrect, it gets a bit clunky and unnatural in everyday conversations. Listening to the rhythms of real conversations allows you to absorb these shortcuts and phrasal expressions.
So if I am watching television programs or listening to podcasts, that's how I would get the real-life patterns, right?
Yeah, sure. The more exposure you get to natural conversations, the more you'll start to understand the rhythm, tone, and expressions used by native speakers. Don't just focus on learning new words. Listen to how people use them in everyday situations. And of course, learning new words are necessary for language learning, but we have to prioritize it here for our fluency.
Error number 3, afraid to speak. Due to fear of making mistakes, and of course that's an important one, Most students are afraid to speak because they don't want to make a mistake. I mean, I have seen that, how people get petrified during the conversation and do not utter a word simply because they do not want to make a mistake.
This is huge. The fear of making mistakes is probably the biggest barrier to fluency. If you're always worried about saying something wrong, you'll never actually speak. But here's the secret. Mistakes are part of the process. Native speakers make mistakes all the time, and it's okay for learners to do the same. Every mistake is a learning opportunity.
That's so true. I remember hearing native speakers say things like, "I seen that," instead of "I saw that," and no one really cared. Why do you think learners are so afraid of making mistakes?
Maybe we put too much pressure on ourselves. We would not want to talk with any fault, especially using an important language such as English. It is true, though, that fear really does not carry you anywhere, but rather restrains you. One will not really exercise his practice, since in his thoughts, he will surely be thinking of grammar rules, even the possibility of saying something wrong.
Before I ask you a question right now, I'd like to ask our listeners about these mistakes. Do or did they make such mistakes? Are these solutions helpful for them? If you think so, then write your thoughts down below. So, back here, how do we get over that fear and start speaking more?
The trick is to begin small and start speaking in low-stress situations. Discuss with a friend, join a language exchange group, or talk to yourself in English. Record your speaking and listen to the recordings. You will realize that your mistakes are not as large of a deal as you seem to think. The more you speak, the more confident you become, and the fewer mistakes you will make.
What a great conversation! To summarize, the 3 hidden mistakes are focusing too much on grammar rules, not listening enough to natural speech, and avoiding speaking because of fear of mistakes. These mistakes can really slow down your progress, so make sure to watch out for them.
Yes, exactly. Don't let these mistakes stop you. Just keep speaking, keep listening, and don't be afraid to make a few mistakes along the way. It's all part of the journey to fluency.
Thanks so much for joining me, Victoria. It's been awesome to have you on the show today. I'm sure our viewers will take a lot away from this.
Thanks again, Mark, for having me. I really enjoyed it, and I hope these tips help everyone on their journey to learning English.
So, to all of you out there, and please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos and tips on how to become fluent in English. We'll see you next video.
Take care, everyone, and keep practicing.
See you next time. Overthink. To think too much about something, especially in a way that causes unnecessary stress or confusion. Example, she tended to overthink every decision, which made it hard for her to choose a career path. Grammaticality, the correctness of a sentence according to the rules of grammar. Example, she don't like pizza lacks grammaticality because it should be, she doesn't like pizza. Phrasal verb, a verb combined with one or more particles, like a preposition or adverb that creates a different meaning. Example, pick up is a phrasal verb meaning to collect something, like, can you pick up the groceries on your way home? Contractions, shortened forms of words where letters are omitted and an apostrophe is used. Example, I'm is a contraction for I am, and don't is a contraction for do not. Textbook English, the formal and structured version of a language typically taught in textbooks, often not reflecting the natural way people speak. Example, the phrase, I am going to the store is more textbook English, while native speakers would often say, I'm going to go to the store. Wedded, to be strongly attached or committed to something, often used to describe an attachment to specific ways or ideas. Example, he was so wedded to traditional cooking methods that he never considered trying new techniques. Implication, the conclusion or effect that is suggested or implied by something, often without being directly stated. It refers to the possible results or consequences of an action or situation. Example, the implication of his late arrival was that he had missed an important meeting. Clunky, awkward, or difficult to use, often describing something that feels heavy or unnatural. Example, the new software felt clunky, and it was hard to navigate through the menus. Neglected, something that has been ignored or not given proper attention. Example, the garden had been neglected for months and weeds had overtaken the plants. Restrain, to hold back or limit someone's actions or movements. Example, the police officer had to restrain the suspect to prevent him from running away.